Death threats won't stop local journalists from reporting. The deadly shooting in the Gazette newsroom is a reminder of the potential dangers small town reporters face daily on the job. Tim Cruz, publisher and editor of the Sacramento Valley Mirror, has fielded his share of death threats in the 27 years since he opened the newspaper. In April 2017, an unidentified reader left a hangman's noose at the door of his office in Willows, California, an implied threat that may be linked to a local murder investigation the paper was covering at the time. The gesture was extreme enough to catch the attention of the international advocacy group Reporters Without Borders, but not enough to intimidate the 74-year-old journalist. If you go to jail in Glenn County, if you're arrested, your name goes in the paper, Cruz told NBC News on Friday. We report every police call. We report every accident. We're the paper of record here, he continued. But not everyone wants to be in the paper of record. So Cruz said he was saddened, but not surprised to write a page one editorial about a mass shooting that left 5 journalists dead Thursday in Annapolis, Maryland, for the Saturday edition of his 2,960 circulation broadsheet. The only protection against a similar attack is me, Cruz said of his newsroom, which houses a staff of 4. I have a .357, a 12-gauge shotgun, and a dog with good ears in my office. While national political reporters can get deluged with a high value of vitriolic threats on social media, local journalists are more vulnerable to actual violence, particularly when they cover demonstrations, according to the Committee of Protect Journalists. Most of the violence committed against journalists are not against the Washington Press Corps, they are against journalists working in the local communities, said Joel Simmons, executive director of the Committee of Protect Journalists. If someone has a beef with you and you're a local reporter, it can get ugly in a hurry because you're accessible. The suspected gunman in the Capitol Gazette spree, Jared Ramos, seems to fit that profile. Authorities have said the 38-year-old nursed a grudge over a 2011 column that reported on his guilty plea to harassing a former high school classmate after reconnecting online. In the aftermath of the shooting, journalists took to social media to mourn the loss of Jared Frischman, Robert Hassan, John McNamara, Rebecca Smith, and Wendy Winters, and to swap their own stories of death threats they received. Some, like Cruz, pointed the finger at President Donald Trump for calling reporters enemies of the people at his rallies or in his tweets. The retort that comes from the White House emboldened people, said Cruz. When you get the chief executive get up there and say journalists are enemies of the people, there are enough unhinged people that will take that to heart. Simon, though, is quick to cautious that there's no data showing any connection between Trump's treatment of the media and any increase in danger to reporters, and that to suggest one is dangerous. Whatever held former murder in the gunman's mind, journalists have endured the potential for violence for a long time. Before Thursday's massacre, the most recent murder of journalists were the 2015 on-air shooting of Virginia TV reporter Allison Parker and cameraman Adam Ward as they covered a local event. In 2007, execution of Oakland Post editor-in-chief Chauncey Bailey over his paper's coverage of a local bakery of the 45 assaults on journalists in 2017 recorded by the U.S. Press Freedom Tracker. 43 took place while the reporters were covering a local demonstration event or crime scene. Outside major media hubs, local newspaper reporters are often the most visible representatives of the profession. They're also the most accessible to the public, said Simon. Security is expensive and is anathema to the profession, said Simon. Journalists can't report from behind barricades. Amy Masters, a senior editor at the Rango Herald, said the event in Annapolis 2,000 miles from her Colorado mountain town, couldn't help but resonate with the 7,000 circulation papers, 16 staffers, especially since the front door to their offices is right off the town's main street and leads directly to the newsroom. People started thinking, what if this happened here? Monster said on Friday. We look for what exit would run for, what deaths will we dive under, Monster said. She's already had to call police 3 times this year to walk her from the office to her car because of threats. It's on our minds, but it's not going to change the way we do our job, she said. But for Adam and Galitas, now 26, disturbing experience during her internship at the now defunct Oakland Tribune helped convince her to switch from street reporting to a desk job. Galitos had been excited to cover the Occupy Oakland protests in the summer of 2012 and post her dispatches on social media until the anonymous demonstrators started messaging threats to her privately. She ignored them until they started to get very specific, referencing what she was wearing on a given day and where she conducted interviews. Just to get to that level of granularity was frightening, said Galitos, who is now a digital producer at the Tennessean. Her editor took her off the Occupancy Oakland story and put her on to a courthouse beat as a precaution for the rest of the internship. If you're out there by yourself, it can be very frightening, said Galitos. Part of you is just entirely focused on the events that are going on in front of you and interviewing as many people as possible. But at the same time, at the back of your head, you're wondering, is there a person watching me who wants to do me harm? The experience definitely made me look at my career and say, did I really want to put myself out there that much? It's essential that news organizations take threats seriously and involve police when there is a hint of a credible danger, said Simon. Our data suggests that journalists are often threatened before attack, he said. Every newsroom should come up with a protocol. Often journalists are cynical enough to treat death threats with a sort of gallows humor, however, or even as a rite of passage. As an intern at the San Gabriel Valley newspaper group, a suburban Los Angeles chain, Michael Dean Clark experienced that up close in the 1990s when he received a letter from a disgruntled reader. I was like, I don't know what to do with this, recalled Clark, now a 42-year professor of creative writing at Azusa Pacific University in Southern California. This reporter turned to me and said, you're not a real reporter until you get a death threat. Means you're doing your job right. He guesses that he was doing his job right when he received one of his own 2 years later, by which time he was a full-fledged reporter at the newspaper group. An anonymous reader had taken exception to a story Clark wrote about a black car dealership owner who claimed that he was being racially harassed by the outlet's privileged white owner, the reporter told him. Writers like me kept people from getting past our racial history, and if he saw me, he'll make me part of history, said Clark. I remember reading that and turning to the same reporter to tell him I got my death threat. He said it only counts when the person comes into the office and then everybody laughs, said Clark. But I remember at the time feeling very shaken.